Hey, welcome to the Doctors Who podcast. In this episode, we are exploring Dune, Book 3, The Prophet. It has been 2 years since we caught up with Paul, Jessica, and the Baron. The Baron is feeling a little on edge after a supposed assassination plot by the Baron's heir, Feyd. Is Feyd trying to usurp the Baron's role, or is Thufir somehow involved? Does he have his own agenda? It's revealed to the reader that the Emperor recruits talent for the Sardaukar from the penal colony of Salus Secundus. The Emperor uses tools of oppression and competition to draw the best of the best to his specialized army. Could the Baron apply pressure to Raban and create the same setup on Arrakis? Finally, on Arrakis, Paul is preparing to ride a sandworm for the first time. Will he finally take the mantle, fulfilling the Fremen prophecies? We'll address these questions and more coming right up.
Hello and welcome to the Doctors Who podcast. My name is Chris.
I'm Chip.
And I'm Brian.
So, thank you for that intro, Brian. I appreciate it very much. Before we jump in and talk about this, I want to take a quick minute to call out Nick Eimerman and the N. Eimerman Design Company. Nick has done all of our logo work as well as the overlays that we use in our shows. So if you need graphic design work, please visit him at nimerman.com or go to Instagram at @nimerman_design. All right. So our format dictates that we are going to each give kind of our take for this episode, like the things that stood out to us, what we liked, what we didn't like, things like that. So we will do that with Chip, then go to Brian, and then I almost said something about me in the rear, but I decided not to, so we'll just go right to Chip.
That could have been funny.
Chip, you're up.
On that note, these I guess we're covering 3 scenes here, so it's really what Brian covered in the opening. But I think that there's some interesting elements here in knowing, trying to figure out what Thufir is actually up to. Is he really playing both sides, or is he still kind of plotting ultimate revenge against the Baron eventually? The other thing that I really liked here, the Paul scene, getting ready to ride the sandworms, kind of, there's not a lot that happens there. But I like the reveal of why the Emperor moved against the House Atreides, and that, the Duke was gaining strength, he was gaining support, and he had developed these soldiers that were going his Sardaukar death troops a run for their money. So
I really like that. Actually, I'm going to say my favorite part about this, it's kind of like an odd choice, but I kind of like the fact that we're 2 years beyond where we were at the end of book 2. Like, I like the feeling of reading something that's real and gritty, and it just feels legitimate. And I feel like the ability to go 2 years forward, a lot can happen, and now we're kind of playing catch up. So I like the fact that things have not been staying stagnant here in this universe. So I kind of like how all of these, like the Baron is feeling more and more like paranoid. It kind of feels like he's just on edge. And as Chip said, I really like the feeling of like the backstory of where the Sardaukar come from and kind of how that process works on recruiting these super soldiers. And then lastly, I was reading through the section with Paul, kind of staring out over the desert, and it made me think of, those murder mystery shows where he's just slowly looking out over the ocean, just wondering, actually, the ocean of sand, going, am I going to be able to ride a sandworm tomorrow? I don't know. It just kind of struck me funny, but I thought it was a good section overall. I really liked the section of the book.
Okay, so the interesting things that stood out to me in this was, I think, firstly, the fact that, Feyd has made an attempt on the Baron's life, and I mean, yeah, the Baron is annoyed. We do find out that Thufir warned him, but as we kind of read through that section, we find out that, the Baron's like, he still has so much to learn. He still needs me. So it's like he's not like shocked and appalled, and he knows that he can't get rid of Feyd because Feyd is his heir. So that part to me was just kind of interesting, that entire dynamic. And yeah, I you guys picked up on it as well, but we don't really know what Thufir's long game is. Like, he does say in that section that he has been in contact with Gurney Halleck, which is an interesting little tidbit. But we're not sure exactly what he's trying to do yet. And then the last section with Paul, I really kind of liked that, at the beginning, he's struggling because he's in these prescient visions, and he's moving into the future, and he's having to stop and look around and be like, okay, wait, am I still in the dream or is this real? So it's like he's almost like losing himself in these, and he's concerned about that. So I thought that was pretty neat. Okay. So the first question I have, what do you guys think about Thufir?
I kind of think he's like my dark horse candidate for favorite character, just because he plays the role of Mentat so well, and it's like he's like constantly playing mind games, but he's not really being talked about. Like, maybe he's my favorite side character or my favorite kind of behind the scenes mover, because you can tell even without him having dialogue, the fact that he is always on the mind of the people around him. Like, what is Thufir up
Sure.
to? Oh, we're going to be so much better off now that we have a master Mentat and a master assassin on our hands. There's just so much intrigue about him, but he never really says an awful lot. So I kind of like where Herbert's going with this character. I feel like there's a lot of story arc left to him, and I'm hoping that he gets roped back into kind of a more prominent role here in the last couple chapters.
Yeah, I think he's an interesting character as well. What I find kind of interesting about him and the whole relationship with the Baron is how the Baron, feels that he needs a Mentat, and he feels that he trusts Hawat, or trusts that he has put Thufir in a position that Thufir really has to serve him. But I think the Baron's always overconfident. It's funny because he's overconfident that he thinks he's smarter than everybody else, but he's also paranoid that everybody else is out to get him. So it's just kind of a weird dynamic. But I agree. I think there's a lot more to Thufir that he's up to more than we may realize. I don't want to spoil anything going, but he's a good character.
So the interesting thing I noted was this is the first section that has Thufir's point of view since before the Atreides fell. So I mean, like we've been, they've kind of talked about him, but this is the first time we really get kind of a window into what's going on, and we see that he doesn't like the Baron. He thinks he's a grotesque pig. He loathes him, but it's weird because he's still giving him like this essential knowledge. So he helps the Baron kind of understand how many Fremen there might actually be on Arrakis, which to me seems maybe counterproductive if he's trying to bring the Baron down. But again, we don't know what his long game is. He's very clever.
I almost wondered if that play was like a ruse to get the Baron to, and we talked about like the last assault on Arrakis and how many years back it set them financially. I almost wonder if it's a play on like, if you're going to capture this, you need to send at least 1,000 times the number of troops that you think you do, because they're everywhere, and by doing so, maybe like expire the treasury of the Baron. Like if he's trying to bring him to financial ruin as well. So, but yeah,
But he also brings up the fact that that it's really the Emperor that made the move against House Atreides, and he used the Baron. So it, is Hawat really after the Baron, or is he after both the Baron and the Emperor, or
That's a
who's
good
really
point.
in his
Good point.
sights?
Yeah.
All of them, I
And
suppose, but
right.
on some level.
But he really kind of plays an integral role in the section before, where the Baron discovers Feyd's boy assassin,
Hmm.
and this was just interesting to me because you you almost get the impression that the Baron is like sort of impressed that Feyd tried to pull it off. Obviously, he's a little miffed because it was his own life on the line, but he's like, see, he did this wrong or he did that wrong, and he notices things like Feyd has like a couple of guards that are in with him and things like that. So that whole scheming bit to me was fascinating, actually.
Yeah, and the fact that Thufir was kind of in the middle of it, playing them both against each
Mm-hmm.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to the previous point, he's kind of back there pulling the strings, almost like he's some sort of a puppet master or master chess player or something.
Hmm.
I think I lost my page. There we go. And it was so like Feyd believes that he's basically safe, right? Because he's the Baron's chosen heir. He's like, he's not gonna kill me. He needs me. But at the same time, when the Baron's like, come on, let's take a walk, and like there's like legitimate concern. He's like, is he gonna like knife me in the back or something? So it's yeah, and it's clear that Feyd does not trust Thufir. He thinks he's growing more dangerous by the day, and the Baron, to Chip's point, is still supremely overconfident. And he's like, no, I've got him under control.
Yeah, well, Feyd realizes that. Yeah, well, Feyd's the one that realizes that Hawat's kind of playing both of them against each other, but I don't know that the Baron caught on to that.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that is a good point. That at no point is Feyd ever, and I get a feeling like there is something big coming with Feyd, but you kind of get the impression early on here that Feyd really is not a dummy.
No.
That I do like the fact that there are no clearly idiotic characters. There are definitely characters that are overconfident, like the Baron, but he's not writing dummies in the position of power. It's
No.
Yeah, Feyd's an
The
interesting
Baron,
character too.
the Baron reminds me of some leaders in our own world today. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll leave it at that.
So it's also worth, I think, noting that Thufir has told the Baron and probably Feyd about the Fremen's new religious leader, Muad'dib, which we find out in the Thufir-centric section that he's actually still in contact with Gurney Halleck, who's hanging out with smugglers back on Arrakis. So, like, he's still got, like, these lines of communication, and I wonder how much freedom he actually has on Giedi Prime. It's like, can he just, like, go do his own thing? Is there somebody constantly watching him? That kind of occurred to me as I was reading through some of this, too.
Well, we know that he's got the poison
Right.
that's been administered, and that they can take it away at any time.
Yeah.
So, does the Baron feel like that's enough control that he needs, that he'll let Hawat do what he wants, knowing that he can end Hawat's life whenever he wants? But who knows?
And then, speaking of Muad'Dib, we have our third section, which actually focuses on Paul, and this is our first look at Paul in 2 years.
So this would put him at what, 17 or 18, somewhere in
I think
there?
he was 15.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably 17. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that sounds right.
We also find out, don't we find out that he's got a child now, and he's married to Chani, or Chani's one of his
Yeah.
or wives or
They're-
partners or whatever they call them in the
Yep.
Fremen world.
I don't think I don't not a wife, but yeah, it's something.
It's some sort of a
Companion, maybe.
concubine or partner type
They
thing.
I think they made reference to a union,
Yeah,
but
something like that.
it wasn't like a wedding or there was no
Right.
marriage. Yeah.
We do find out that Jessica is not the biggest fan of that.
Right. Not in this chapter though. Not in these scenes.
Well, that's the
But-
role of the mother-in-law, right?
Kind
Something
of,
like
yeah.
that.
I mean, did I
I didn't
say
hear
that?
anything.
The Reverend mother-in-law.
Ooh.
Oh,
Wait.
But
But Paul's really become now a religious leader, a political leader, a warrior. I mean, he's kind of I don't even know what to call him at this
Muad'dib.
point because he's just he's just Muad'dib at this point. That he's become bigger than himself.
Yeah.
From the way people see
Well,
him. But inside he's still a
he
pretty young
is.
kid.
And I touched on this in my take, but it's like he's so far into these visions of the future and exploring them that he's having problems anchoring himself to the present. Like, so he has to find like a memory or an anchor to that point in time, so he knows when he's back where he's supposed to be. And they make a reference to the Alam al-Mithal, the world of similitudes, the metaphysical realm where all physical limitations were removed. And there's fear from him at the thought of such a place, because that would mean the removal of all the limitations and then all those points of reference. So I just thought that little paragraph where it talked about that was interesting. I'm like, ooh, fun.
That is interesting.
Yeah. But this is all about him kind of taking the final step. Like, riding a sandworm is something that most Fremen kids do by like age 12. And that's like the one thing he hasn't done yet. And it's, he feels that it's kind of, his leadership is suffering because he hasn't done this one thing yet. So, yeah. And it's
about darn time he learns.
It is, yeah. And
yeah, and this chapter, I can't remember if it was this one or the upcoming scene that we'll talk about next week. When I like the detail that Herbert goes into on the purpose of the hooks and how that it makes the sandworm roll to keep the sand from getting under its scales. And,
stay tuned next time for all the details of what Chip's talking about right now.
That's what I call
couldn't remember. The scenes kind of run together in my head, so it's.
No,
I couldn't remember which was which, but
yep.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that next week.
And I think we end this section with Paul asking about his sister Alia, who's now between 1.5 years and 2 years old. I don't know how far along Jessica was
physically.
At the end. Right, yeah. But I think Chani is there, and he's like, well, is she accepted by the Fremen? And she's like, she doesn't want to talk to him about it at first, because she's like, no, he's got to focus on the sandworm thing. But he pushes, and she says that they're fearful. The child is little more than an infant and talks of things only an adult should know. So that's kind of interesting, and we will learn more about that one next time as well.
Yes.
Did we hit the big points, do we think?
I think so.
All right, cool. So, next time we will be covering the next 2 sections. And that is Jessica and Alia. So we find a lot more about them. And then we also have the section where Paul attempts to ride the worm. Does he succeed? Does he fail? Time will tell. So that will be coming next week. Probably will drop on Thursday afternoon. If you have liked this video and what we've been discussing, please use the like button below. Also, please feel free to click subscribe and hit the notification bell so that when we post new content, you're notified. Lastly, we invite you to use the discussions and the comments below. We do like to have additional conversations if there are things that you liked that we didn't talk about, or things that we said that maybe you don't agree with. Go ahead and put those down below, and we'll be happy to have a conversation about those things. Yeah, I think that's it. So thank you again for watching. We hope to see you next time, and until then...
Allons-y.